stewardship was the November theme. Thank you, Brother Ray. And stewardship is a big topic. And I see on the calendar what is going to be presented on the pulpit in the next weeks, and giving relationship and work, and in so doing, in accordance to a series mythology, I'm going to go right into the meat and potatoes of it. You know, we can do talents, we can do time, we can do treasure, I'm going right to the beginning. Number one, because I need to. Number two, because we need to. Number three, because nobody else really attacks it the way that the Bible should. Present it in the way that we accept it. But before that, it's also appropriate as employed by you to give you also little updates on what's going on in the church from the youth standpoint. I think it's not difficult to see that they're infiltrated every ministry, and it's a very proud situation for our church because they're really leading. And now you have leaders actually begetting leaders. And we have now the Genesis group who's moving up really well, and now they're looking for people to disciple. And a lot of things have come up from this type of scenario. And when somebody's on fire, you don't stop the fire, you just control it. And they said if you have fire in the home, nothing wrong with fire, you put it in its right place or else it's going to burn everything down. So you put it in the fireplace where it can actually resonate and help and build. So that's what we're doing with the youth, and there's a lot of ministries ongoing that you feel the need to help support in prayer first, support secondly, either in resources or even time, or even finances. Please approach the leaders. We have the youth leaders as well as the Genesis leaders. Let's do that. We have a conference coming up in the next little while for discipleship. That's huge. I will say this. Feb called me up. We had a meeting with Feb. They love the idea of this. This was a very, very simple. A few of the guys sat down and said, I think we need this. And so we launched it. Whatever happens, will happen. We're not doing this for anybody else except for God. And God will institute what growth it leads to. We're just standing and obeying. You know, that's a very simple recipe for a strong ministry. Stand and obey. And now Feb says, can we help you next year? And we want to launch it with you, and we want to send it to. And I said, oh, well, you can meet with the guys who initiated it for our youth group. And they said, okay, can we have a meeting with them? I'm like, absolutely. We have the young, the kids being helped who have special needs in the church. If you need help on that or any questions, please ask myself or the leaders. We will appropriate you to the things that's necessary there. And however that grows, God will also provide. We're hoping to launch also an ESL course here. You know, God gave us a building for a reason. And I will tell you right now, it's not really for us. It's for Him. And His heart is others, and then us. That's what we should do. And hopefully the community, some of them will say, I do need to speak English well. And with our hearts, we teach them. Not so they can be certified to do this. No, with our hearts, we teach them. Say hello. We have an outreach ministry that we're joining with other churches that one of our brothers here, the young people, is doing in the Chinese community, in the Vietnamese community. And they call it ping pong. That's just code for evangelism. So is gym. That's code for evangelism. Music concert. That's code for evangelism. Fellowship. That's fellowship. And there's so many things that is moving and progressing. So help us as you pray for us. And there are more things to come. Hopefully, we can really, really spread the kingdom of God. Tithing. You can go in any direction with tithing, but you must go with God's direction. You can start off with, I know this message. It's all God's. Well, it's the same thing with application-based and theory-based. We're good at theory. It's all God's, not what I see, brother. Because you're using it more than God is. You're owning it more than God is. And you're giving it like it's not God's. For where your treasure, there your heart. And where your heart, that's everything to you. So we can talk about time. That's easy because I can't really receipt you on time, can I? We can talk about testimony. Oh, you can facade that. I can walk into here, you have no idea what my testimony is. I walk out there, different testimony, walk in a different scenario, different testimony, different platforms, different testimony. How can I receive that? And I don't get called back from the government on my testimony. Your talents. There's another one. What talents are you using? Are you using second talent? Well, I have time for the church, therefore I will. What are you doing there? See, but the money. Money's tangible. A little bit of a hard fight. We can wrestle because we can grab it and pull. And the government even tells you, good job, and I'll give you back. We don't take that into account. And so we have a lot of things, and I'm glad a lot of people texted me, they've been texting me for the last 6 months, about what is giving, Kuya? How do you give? What is the percentage? And so on. There are a lot of things in the Bible. Is it grace? Is it law? What does the OT say? What does the New Testament say? What do you do? What do they do? How come this church does that? How come this? How come there's a governing body? There is a simple way of doing this, and it stops here. Love. You know, giving is done after you say love. Why you give is done after you say love. How you give is done after you say love. What you give is already done after you say love. But apparently, in most churches, we need to break it down. Because we know how to love each other. We sure know how to love ourselves. But loving God apparently needs a breakdown. We need church. We need study. We need one-on-one accountability. We need the pulpit. We need Theo. We need Christo. We need the Greek version of that. We need this. 4 loves in the Bible. But explain it to me. The reason why? Because we fight against it. I have my points on the board. And the first point is, are we under grace, brother? Or are we under law? We're under grace now, Brother Marvin, not the law anymore. Why should we give? That way. And of course, I go through MacArthur, Piper, Stanley saying this, the commentary here, the commentary there, old Filipino preachers, old Caucasian preachers. I'm listening to, where's this going? And I get confused. Because what do I want to do? Then we Google. Got questions? So then we deduce that tithing was law and not grace, according to all our thinking and reflecting and limited capacity to find the resources. Therefore, we are under no obligation and compulsion to tithe. Right? Wait. Didn't Abraham and Jacob tithe under grace 100 and so more years before the law? That Mosaic law, didn't they give tithe even by percentage? Then I ran into a word that I knew a long time ago, didn't care about until this message again. Antinomians. Antinomians. If you are an antinomian, we're under the gospel dispensation. Don't want to get into that. Section, we'll call it that. Placement, we'll call it that. We are under the gospel dispensation of grace. And therefore, the moral law is of no use or obligation if I am an antinomian. But it's inconsistent. As you study even Galatians 5:13, there are old-time antinomians. It's not new. It's been there before. Paul was plagued with it. He wrestled with it. It's extremism. This philosophy that we cater to because it serves our purpose. And it teaches the doctrine that makes us more comfortable. This doctrine of liberty. Relativism. It's not new. And then you look at, well, it's like Christianity in a cafeteria. I'll pick and choose what's good for me, because even in that scenario, the doctrine of liberty, the teaching of the Old Testament, the Sabbath, seems okay. We'll take that one. Monogamy and marriage seems okay. We'll take that one. Those are good things. We'll take that one. But tithing, that's old-fashioned. That's legalistic. That's an issue that affects me. Where does this fit into what Jesus taught? Because that's what we're trying to do, grace law. And Matthew 5:17 comes in. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. In essence, saying, I'm not lowering the standards of the Old Testament to satisfy the currency of the day. We are now going beyond what the law stated because of it. And Jesus took the Old Testament to new levels and heights. If Jesus did that, to take the Old Testament, to bring it to new levels and heights, what does it say about tithing based on biblical patterns? We should then take tithing to new levels and heights. Jesus didn't come to abrogate what God had already done. He came to raise our moral living from obedience to the law to that impersonal, infinite new heights of love, to a very personal Savior. See, Jesus showed us that prayer can move from pretense, just routine, doing it, having to do it. We still do that. Jesus, thank you for this food. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. We're not thinking of God, we're thinking of the chicken. Jesus moved the Sabbath from sacrilege. Then he's moving tithing from tedium. Just giving because. Just doing it out of the routine of. This is what Jesus did. 1 Corinthians 16:2, Paul asked us to give as God prospered him. As God, capital G, prospered him, small h. We do it the other way around when we give, don't we? As God, small g, prospered us, big H. So if Paul said, as God prospered, what's your standard? Brother, give as God prospered. What's your standard? Sister, give as God prospered. Church, give as God prospered. Christians, give as God prospered. What is the reference point for this except the Word of God, which is what they call the Old Testament? The standard that God had initiated. And the only reference point that Paul is using, that's the standard, the Word of God Himself. Therefore, it is in consideration of the law and the standards that it taught and said. Because if you want to be legalistic, break it down. There are three types of tithing in the Mosaic Law. Deuteronomy 12, 17, 19, 14, 28, 29. Regular tithe to support the priests in the temple. The festival tithe to support celebrations, required ceremonial feasts. Charity tithing for Levites, orphan widows, general needs, and charitable effects. Want to be legalistic? You better give more than 23%. That's what it was. If you want to be to the T. And the percentages, then you're going over 23%. And that's all even that's referred to there. So 10% is even on the minimal side. But we act like it's the worst thing in the world. You know, it can come down to 5%. After a while, we act like it's the worst thing in the world. It comes down to 2.5. We'll act like it's the worst thing in the world. Come down to 1%. We'll act like it's the worst thing in the world. 0.01%. Eventually, we'll act like it's the worst thing in the world. Because it's not the percentage. Never was. We show our skin when we complain about the maximum standard that we think it is when it's actually the minimum standard in the Old Testament. So grace law, where, when, how, whether it was pre-law, whether it was in the law, or was it after the law, tithing never changed. Tithing is that old. Historically, as far as there are records, there are evidences that man was instructed in giving unto God as offering and a tithe of his income. Abraham, living under grace, not the law, gave a tenth of all. Hebrews 7, 1-17. Jacob, in response to God, as records show, Genesis 28:22, is giving under grace and not the laws. Moses just came along, was the instrument to reveal the plan and laws of God. And the laws were for guidance in matters of service and worship under the Levitical covenant in tithing, and tithing was incorporated in that law. It was already understood as an expression of man's stewardship and worship pre-law. It was just recorded in the law. It was already there before Egypt. And then we read the last Old Testament prophet, Malachi, after speaking of the messenger of the new covenant, brought emphasis on tithes and offerings, which is beyond our doubt or truth. 3:10 of Malachi. Notice there, it's tithes and offerings, plural. Tithes and offerings. You know, there was a Filipino restaurant in the Philippines, and he was asking for, "Excuse me, ma'am, can I have 1 Coke and 3 Sprite?" And his friend said, "Shh, 3 Sprite, plural yan. May S." Sabi niya, 1 Coke and 3 S Sprite. Notice in Malachi 3:10, it's put tithes and offerings into the storehouse. Storehouse connotates and refers always to a place of worship, gathering, meeting, assembly. In the New Testament, it's the church. And then 3:10 continues, strong and blessed promises connected with faithful stewardship. Faithful stewardship, not perfect stewardship. Yet we hide behind the excuse of legalism. Brother, if you do it, that's just old-fashioned. That's OT law, man. You're being legalistic. Yet we hide what we really give because we know it is nowhere close to any proportion we can justify. I wish we would get the same time as tithes receipt. I wish we would get a worship receipt from God. God sends you, well, here's your worship receipt for the year. Or here's your evangelism quota for the year. Here it is. With your receipt and giving. And thank you. Here's your worship receipt. Here's how you cared for people. Here's your evangelism receipt. Here is your win-loss percentage of sin and struggle receipt. You'll be scared to open that receipt, huh? You're even scared to open the receipt. Okay, thank you, Sister Shona. If we live under grace, then unlike the Jews, we should do so much better when they were under the law. Or else we did not fully understand or even accept Calvary. Did tithing start with the law? Absolutely not. And it didn't end with the ceremonial law when it was fulfilled on Calvary with Jesus. Anything that is out of harmony with God, like sin, was still sin. Anything that was sacrifice and giving to God is still sacrifice, stewardship, and worship and giving to God in pre-post. Tithing was before, during, and after the law as part of our covenant relationship with God. And the basis of true worship, that is the baseline of stewardship. And in itself, stewardship is a good part, if not the biggest part of worship. How we view the world is usually how we give. You ever notice that? We have this view of the world of scarcity thinking. We call it that. That's when you think it's yours and you have to protect it because it's yours. If you have scarcity thinking, by default, you will be reserved in giving. You have to understand, generosity is not our normal human condition. It isn't. Young kids, when they're born, first big word, mine. That's mine. I yet to see a kid, yours. Let alone adults, here, half yours. Because they got better. How that world view we take on to ourselves. And as we mature in thinking and grace, we see more of what we need to do as the Lord wanted us to change. And we start moving to abundant thinking. This is trusting God more. This is the provider God. The God is the God of abundance and not scarcity. And I understand where you come from, parents. Oh, university. I look at the gas pricing. I love Brampton because it's $1.14, and I've seen places in Toronto $1.26. Look at the gas, and my car choked. $1.26. Is that regular? It is. Oh, if you're doing higher than regular, you're in trouble. Woo! If you want to fight worry and fear, try giving more. Trust me. The New Testament says, 16:2, in proportion. Hebrews, tithing is mentioned undoubtedly. Abraham believed the gospel and was under grace, not the law. Matthew 22:21, there we see obligation to state. Distinction between church and state, but also it refers to obligation to God. The tithe is holy to God. It was never ours. We can't give to God. It already belongs to God. Here we are, though, thinking we're giving to God. Look what I did for God. Here's what I'm going to say. And I said this before. I'm pausing because I'm thinking of bringing it up, but I won't. We are bringing it, tithing, we are bringing, tithing is more bringing than giving. Think about it. We are bringing it to the storehouse for redistribution for what He already has ordained. So when you say, what is the church budget? It's huge. What do you mean? I'm not looking at the bank account of PIBC, I'm looking at each one of your bank accounts. That's the PIBC budget. It's not the giving, it's the bringing from here to here. Bring it to the storehouse, where I have ordained that substance for my use. It was never ours. If our giving was cold and legalistic, and a materialistic submission to the law, then we miss the whole meaning of stewardship, pertaining to our relationship to God. As well, we may never experience the blessings associated with that experience in that relationship of giving to God. But if we participate in the program of God, rejoicing in the redistribution for His storehouse, participating in worldwide ministries, then we understand, I said it in the beginning, that love. Because love is a verb, and one verb that represents love is give. And we even like that side, but we don't even like the other side of what Malachi said. There's another side to what he says. Blessing for those who give first fruits, but also curse for the opposite. If you don't honor God with your substance, you know, it's very common. Someone with plenty usually has plenty of bitterness in life and defeat in the soul. Even statistics show this, and I don't know how they stat this, but I'm just telling you what the stats say. Look it up. 1 in every 100 prosperous person is only that one person remains with his integrity. It's rare. Because words like this come up. The more you have, the more prosperous you are. Things like this come up, and it becomes lighter and lighter. Compromise. It's a good thing God didn't give me money. Maybe I'm not that 1 out of the 100. Maybe I will compromise. So thank you, Lord, for knowing better for me and my character development. If you are a Christian and you handle money the wrong way, you will face those consequences. That's even a nice political way of saying it. Let's go back to Malachi. If we rob God, our blessing turns into a curse. That's not even for me. Even in blessing, there will be sorrows and testing and sufferings. Absolutely. But the outcome will surely be a blessing. So tithing has been there. Tithing has a place in the law and has an absolute place in grace. But what is the spiritual rewards of tithing? Let's see. There is a reward to the individual and obviously, of course, to the body of believers and the local church. God absolutely and definitely has a purpose for it. Tithing is not a money-raising scheme. I invite my friends when I was younger, hey, come to church. Why are they asking for money? You don't have to give. I know, but they're asking for money. I saw on TV, they just keep asking and asking. It's like Amway. It's maybe because how we presented it. And people used to ask me, why do you give? And I actually used to say, I know, right? It's terrible. Can you believe that? I work 40 hours a week. When I was young, God didn't work. He doesn't need to work. What does he get paid? And my dad was a pastor, and believe me when I tell you, there were times in my life where it was embarrassing to me as a human being, because my friends who were cool, Their parents had good jobs. I would be sitting with them, trying to keep up with them. Donny Village, $4.99. And then the offering plate would come around. I'm always scared what people thought when the offering plate came around, because you know the people would look at me. And they would say, "Para sa iyo yan." That hurt when I was young. So I went out, I'm going to make money. I'm going to go make money. I'm not going to get to that place where every day you don't know where the money's going to come from. What kind of service is that? Why would God allow that for you, Dad, pastors, church workers? Why? So I'm going to go make money. And God says, no, that's not for you. You're not supposed to have money. Oh. I'm going to put you exactly where that was. And here I am standing. Thank you, Lord. Because every day, I want to find out what God will do, not what my bank account says.
Amen.
And I will say this, as definite as God is, the blessing is that definite. Tithing is not a money-raising scheme. It is a soul-growing character development program. Tithing is not for the tithe, brothers and sisters. You missed it. Tithing is for the tither. It's not about the possession. It's about the possessor. Not about the money. It's about the person. Tithing is not a scheme of man. It is a plan and program of God to enrich, not the church, not God, the person, to develop the character, to enrich the soul, to enlarge your vision. Stop trying to raise that church money for the church. It's not our job. God will raise the church. Instead, bring your best fruits to the storehouse and place it on the altar. Because for nothing else, brothers and sisters, it honors God. God wants your substance because it honors God. It is worship. You can't serve both. Matthew 6:24, Luke 16:13, Genesis 2:4-17. You were made to give. You were made to worship. You were made to be a steward. If you're not giving to God, who are you giving to? If you're not worshiping God, who are you worshiping to? And if you're not being a steward of what God commanded you to do, what are you a steward of? Because you were born to do that. So you can't say, well, I'm not giving. That means you're giving to yourself more than you're giving God. Well, I'm not worshiping God. I'm just staying still. No, that means you're not worshiping God. You're worshiping something else. You were built for worship. That's your DNA. Stop trying to be somebody else. Bring your best fruit to the storehouse and place it on the altar of God. Why? Because it is worship. And the simple definition of worship is we love in response to what God did. That's worship. Response to what He did. It is an expression of our love to God. It opens up the depths of your compassion. It will let benevolence take root in the church. It results ultimately in the joy in your soul. It will enrich your character. You see, blessings from God is teaching us to be like Him. And what is God? God is the ultimate giver. This is the supreme purpose. J.L. Kraft, John D. Rockefeller, big names, Kraft Foods. Ever since I was young, cheese I eat is only Kraft. When I moved to Canada, I didn't know there was more cheese than that. I thought it was Cheese Whiz, and the cheese, that's all I thought there was. And I came to Canada, there's colors of cheese. This cheese, that cheese. Bad cheese, that's good. Smelly cheese, that's good. I don't know. And I don't know, sometimes I'm cutting the cover of the cheese and I eat it. I didn't know. Cheese is soft, cheese is hard, cheese is liquid. Kraft. When somebody says, what kind of cheese do you like? I'm like, I'm scared. You have Kraft. J.L. Kraft, and you know Rockefeller, big names. These were great Christian men who gave greatly. And they both said the greatest return of investment is what was given to God. And I never, bear this in mind and keep this close, I never would have tithed in great wealth if I didn't know how to tithe in no wealth. So when somebody asks me, should I give? You better. Why? Because when God gives you, you have to give more. You see, I love money. Put up your hand if you love money. Oh, you liars. You're in a church. Yes, but boom, Mark, yeah. I'm with you. Okay, all of you go home. Mark, you know what? Yeah, you love, we don't like money, but we love Tim Hortons. Yeah, how are you going to get Tim Hortons money? Money is awesome. We got. Look around you. Look on you. Lift up your, look. Money. If you put it in its right place. Money is a servant, not a master. Money doesn't lead you, you lead money. Problem is, we miss letters. Instead of leading money, we think like we need money. So the need leads wrong. I'm not going to say this because some of us here are in real estate. You know, the best time to buy a house is when you don't need it. How much for your house, Brother Tim? 500,000, Brother Marvin. I'll give you 400,000. No way. Okay. But if I need it, 500,000. Okay. Go get life insurance. Go get insurance. We don't need it. Go look for a car when you don't need it. Go. You have a different negotiation stance. You can walk away. But apparently, every time we use money, we can't walk away. Money is not a master. It is a servant. But it has mastered you. Some people can't go to sleep because of money. And it's amazing to me. I've talked to somebody who had lots of money, and I talked to somebody who had no money. Oh, no, don't get me wrong. Don't tell me that the guy with no money doesn't sleep either. He doesn't sleep either. But they both don't sleep. How does it work? They're both, they're talking. I know I can't sleep with money. I don't have any. I have too much. Spread it out, sleep. I don't understand. We call that average. I don't know. Put it in its place. It is clear we receive rich rewards in both the temporal and spiritual prosperity. But be aware, if you give in hopes to increase your income, I love that. Okay, I'll give this. Okay, God, you said that if I give you, you're going to give me back. Matagal na. Buntis na naman, 3 kwarto.
Bigyan mo pa, dali! If you give in hopes to increase your income or receive praise from men.
Be careful, church. Won't say anything more than what I'm saying.
Be careful when people all know what I give, what you got. Tingnan, mas marami ka naman. Why you see him? Honey, lagyan mo ng extra. Why do you give? I love the wings in the hospital. Love it.
I'll give you 50 million, but I want money. Alright. I don't have to go biblical. That's just common sense. Spiritual common sense to me.
Or grudgingly, or any ulterior motive, how do you expect to receive much blessing? Giving your tithe doesn't substitute for your heart and how your heart relates to God. We said this, I've said this many times, 7 times. I said worship. That's heart to God. It isn't a gift to God. Being able to tithe is a gift in itself from God. God can't receive what's His already, but we can partake in God allowing us stewardship in His resources. It isn't a tribute. It isn't an entrance fee to heaven. Having money and goods, it's not sin. It is the love of it to take the place of who God is and not using it for what it's intended. The purpose to grow your character, then you're in trouble. And we both know sometimes character development in God's program is costly and painful. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, 1 verse in every 6 deals with money. 29 parables, 16 deal with money. God does not ask how much money we have. God asks what we are doing with the money we have. Mark 12, 41, 44. You know that, the widow and the 2 mites. So I can go on for another half an hour, but I won't. Genesis 12:2. Use your blessings to bless others. Personally, you have blessed me. And I appreciate it. I don't know how it's going to use in my work for God and what God has planned, but I thank you. Luke 18, 29 and 30. There is nothing God won't do for the one whose focus is to bless others. Luke 12:48. The money you are given, whatever He gives you, you are expected to give. It's funny how the rules in money apply to the rules of worship and life, doesn't it? And I will end with this. There was a young man who called on his pastor and promised to tithe. I got this from one of the readings from one of the commentaries. I think it was Chris Robert. A young man called on his pastor and promised to tithe. The man was on fire. He needed accountability for tithing. So he said, Pastor, I need to tithe. Help me. So the pastor, let's kneel. Come to the church. Let's kneel at the altar of God. And let's commit it to God. And ask God not only to continue in your promise, but to bless your growing career. So $40 a week was his income. Therefore, he said, I can give $4 a week. He decided in his heart to do that, and that was his commitment to God and to his church. His career grew to a point that he was tithing $500 a week. You can just do the math on how much he's making. I think that's $500,000 a year, $40 a week. So his career grew to the point where he was tithing $500 a week. He called the pastor. Pastor, can I be released from my promise to tithing? It's getting too costly. He said it wasn't a problem when he had low income, but now it's too much, and I just can't afford it. The pastor said, "Oh, come on in. Let's talk about it. Let's pray." So the pastor said that, "I don't know if you can change your promise to God, but we can make this easy, and it will satisfy your promise and God as well. Let's kneel down and ask God to give you $40 a week again." It's so common. Personally, it's common. Corporately, it's common. Universally, it's common. You see, $10 a week is easy when we're making $100 a week. We make $1,000 a week, we can do $100 a week. $5,000 a week, $200 a week. It's still a lot, right? But it went down in proportion. As God gives in abundance, and we are abundantly blessed. It is unbelievable how the new definition of having everything with absolutely nothing resounds to me. And when I had everything, I did have nothing. And that resounded to me as well. Well, why? And I realized going back, I wish I'm not audited on my worship. I wish I'm not audited on my evangelism. I wish I'm not audited when somebody asks me for forgiveness. I wish I was audited when I prayed more. I wish I was audited the way that I structure my reading and how I do family devotions. I wish I was audited on how my heart really served God. But apparently those things don't compare to our auditing, because paper tells us this is what we gave. And when we look at that number, we think it's too much. I'm sure God didn't look at us and say, "I'm going to give them only 10%. You can call it stewardship. You can call it giving. The Bible is clear. It's love for God. And as God gives in abundance, we too should give in abundance. Lord, thank you so much because you gave everything. Yourself. And we forget that sometimes. We're sorry for that. Challenge us. So that you will be multiplied, so that you will be glorified, so that you will be praised, not us. Help us to give because of you. In Jesus' name we pray.